So, welcome to the Builder Registration Information Night on behalf of Kangan. My name's Nathan Hawkins and my business partner Colin Brewer is the other screen you'll see today. Colin, how you going, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you, Nathan, and so on, and welcome to all those that are attending the webinar this evening.
Fantastic. We're going to talk about the registration process. So basically, what is the process in going for your builder's license with the VBA? Now, the case study we're going to talk to you about and walk you through the example, we're going to be talking a lot about the DBU license. The process for any of the licenses are very similar, whether you go for a smaller license like a DBLC or the top license as a DBU. We are happy to answer any questions that you have regarding commercial or demolition licenses as well. But when we talk you through the VBA process, we're going to highlight and really put a spotlight on the DBU process because that's the license we get the most of. It's probably the most in demand. To introduce builder registration, we are the market leader by a fair way. We run about 10 to 15 nights per week, got about 250 students in training every week, about 350 live clients with about 200 applications currently lodged at the VBA. Really exciting news that today we actually got our 1,800th license. We're hoping to get 2,000 licenses by the end of the year, and just really excited to have that effect. And our sort of slogan is builder registration changing lives, and the whole idea is that when you get your license, it is a life-changing event. And we're just thrilled that we get so many people that choose builder registration as your industry partner or your licensing partner. And again, we're hoping that we can provide some information, some advice, and answer any questions that you may have, because there is a lot of information floating around. There's a lot of sort of good and bad information, and hopefully as we're industry specialists, we can answer any questions that you've got and probably shed light on a few different ways of getting registered. So to kick things off, I was going to throw across to Colin. Colin, I'll get you to talk through the requirements to go for your DBU or builder's license.
Yeah, certainly, Nathan. So look, there are three basic requirements which you can't avoid, and the first one is that you've got to have a minimum of 3 years full-time experience in the industry. You can kind of accumulate some of that history and so on, but really you've got to be full-time in the industry. The second one is, and so on, that you have at least 3 jobs, preferably end-to-end builds, which are considerable, which involve all facets from doing the preliminaries right the way to doing the handover, involve all facets of building so that you can talk to it with authority. And the third one is that with one of those 3 builds minimum, you must have been working under the supervision and control of a registered builder who will give you a reference. Now, just having 3 jobs is probably not enough, but you're wanting to be in the industry, and these portfolios which go into the application are the basis and so on of what the assessors will end up and so on that question you about. So the process is that you have those 3 basic requirements. It's not a time when you're putting your application together to hold back. Any other qualifications that you may have, certainly put them in there. The standard pathway is to attain a certificate 4 in building and construction, which is highly valuable and strengthens your application. Furthermore, if you go on to achieve the diploma, again, further strengthen your application. It meets the requirements of the VBA in terms of qualifications without question. And it also takes you straight the way through to the interview, which we'll talk a little bit about later on. But if you've got any other qualifications such as traffic control, boom, even things and so on outside the industry which can demonstrate your commitment to study, it's not the time to be modest. So we put those in there as well. So the 3 elements: 3 years experience, minimum 3 builds of a substantial size, and also having a reference and so on from a registered builder.
Fantastic. Now, when we're looking at the licensing, we look at different types of it. We look at different types of licensing. Colin, if you're going for a carpentry license, like your DBLC, how does that differ?
It specialises, that's called a domestic builder limited to carpentry, or there are actually 29 different categories of limited builder. You are able to take out contracts, you're able to do your own work, but it'll be limited to carpentry. Carpentry is a very strong limited because actually you can build a home which is on stumps, a weatherboard home on stumps. So that categorises that. When we're talking with people and we're qualifying as to what their experience may be, everybody wants to be a DBU because that's the top of the tree. But look, I recommend very strongly that if you're, for instance, doing kitchens, laundries and bathrooms, there is a limited license just purely for doing kitchens, laundries and bathrooms. By attaining that, that will basically legitimise your business and enable you and so on to go out and do contracts up to any value, specialise in that area and so on. That is your livelihood. And then as you get perhaps more experience in building whole homes, then later on you can go for a DBU. The important thing to recognise is that any of the limited licences are a fantastic stepping stone towards getting that DBU if you want it, because you meet already about 60% of the VBA's requirements in understanding about contracts, preliminaries, and what's involved in building.
Okay, we had our first question. So if you have a construction degree, will this get you straight through to the interview?
No, it won't. I'm sorry, there are a number of qualifications. There is a degree which is mentioned in there, and I'd have to check and so on as to the specific degree. Normally speaking and so on, the VBA, what happens is the application goes in, it gets checked by an administrator, and unless that degree is the specific one mentioned, it won't. Now, I must say that the interview or the process from going to the VBA is that your application is checked, it's entered into their system. If you have a diploma or a certain degree, go straight to the interview. If you don't, you must do the multiple choice test and a plan reading test. But I can't emphasise enough that you must have the knowledge to do both the multiple choice. You don't skip a session. You've got to have the equal amount of knowledge and so on to go to the interview.
Fantastic. Okay. There's lots more questions come through. This is fantastic. So please just keep typing away any questions that you have. Are you required to be part of a build from start to finish for a carpentry DBU? So we probably have to break that question down a little bit, because we'll probably talk about it from a DBU point of view, Colin.
Yeah, look, it's the ideal person and so on is involved in every aspect of the build. But frankly, if you're a carpenter working for a volume builder, you only turn up on site after the slab's been poured, so you haven't seen the site set out, you haven't seen the site scrape, you haven't seen the formwork, and perhaps haven't been involved and so on in the slab. That's where it's really important to get that knowledge that's required, and I guess that's what we provide. And so the builder registration is that total knowledge, total area. In the same way as you're expected to know in detail about contracts. Again, if I go back to the fact if you work for a Simmons or a Porter Davis, the chances of you seeing a contract are basically nil. So it's incredibly important that you acquire that knowledge. We're successful.
Yeah, absolutely. The two type of clients that we very regularly get is we'll have a client who comes from a real like a carpenter that will come from a real tactical point of history. So generally they'll struggle more on the legislation and contracts. When we have someone else that comes from more a project supervisory or managerial background, they're going to be stronger at contracts and legislation, but typically they're going to be weaker when it comes to the real tactile things like timber framing and roof lines and pitch roofs and things like that. So really, it's very rare that you get a client that's going to be strong all over. And that's really where the builder registration comes in, where we're going to be training you on all those facets to make sure that you're passing your interview on your first attempt. Next question, Cole, is please explain substantial size means.
If you're doing, to get your DBU or any of the limited licenses, you've got to be able to talk to and demonstrate that you can do all aspects of the work. So if you've just done a little extension, putting a bathroom on with an ensuite, that's probably not going to be enough and so on to be able to get you through. What I'm talking about is a substantial renovation or a house build where you're covering off all facets of a build.
The way I always explain it to clients is that what you're going to do is you're going to bring 3 jobs to the table. So 3 jobs. Now, one of the jobs will need to have a reference, not all 3, just one of the jobs. Now, when you bring your 3 jobs, the license that you receive will be a reflection of those jobs. So if you bring 3 tiny landscaping jobs, well, then you're going to get a landscaping license, a rendering license. When it comes to the DBU, you really want to be having substantial work. So it have heavy structural components. So if it's not a new build, you don't want it to be a small $20,000 reno that's very cosmetic as opposed to being structural. Ideally, you'd want those jobs to be in excess of sort of $80,000 to $100,000. plans and permits involved, they're the sort of jobs that are going to be closer to that DBU. If it's more on the $20,000 to $40,000 to $60,000 mark and there's not as many structural components, that's more what Colin's talking about, the renovation license, which is your bathroom, kitchen, laundry. If it's a bit bigger, we can go for carpentry. But really, when you're working with us, we'll go through your 3 jobs, make sure we're going for the right license and that you are successful on your first attempt. Next question, Cole. The degree I have is the Bachelor of Applied Science Construction Management. Plus, I also have a Cert 4 in Building and Construction.
Well done, well qualified. Allow me, if I can get the gentleman and so on, the ladies' contact details, and I'll confirm all of that and send an email back to them.
Cool. The other thing is I don't want anyone to get too caught up on skipping the multiple choice test, because there's such a fascination on skipping it, right? But at the end of the day, if you can't pass that multiple choice test, you've got no chance passing the interview. The interview is going to be significantly more challenging than the multiple choice test. So the diploma is a fantastic qualification to have, and it's a really great way to get a good base knowledge for when you step into builder registration. It's a great way to show on your resume and your application that you are serious about this, and this is your lifelong passion. This is where you're headed. So when you put your application in, we always say the stronger the application, the shorter the interview. So having that diploma is really important. It's more important that you have it there to sell yourself as a quality, focused building professional, rather than just trying to skip the multiple choice test. And really, the multiple choice test is only going to be 2 hours of your life. 1 hour for multiple choice, 1 hour for fault finding. And I promise you, if you can't pass that, you're not going to pass the interview. So you've really got to eliminate that fear of that test. And if anything, I actually prefer my clients to be doing the test, because if you turn up to your interview and you've got 98% on the multiple choice and 95% on the fault finding, well, then the assessor is going to look at you straight away and say, okay, this is a strong candidate. I'm probably only going to need an hour to an hour and a half with them, not 3 to 4 hours. And that's a really big advantage. So sometimes doing that multiple choice can actually be a significant advantage for you. Okay, another question. If you have completed the jobs but can't remember much about them, for example, it's 5 years ago, are you expected to know it inside and out?
Yeah, look, you'll have 3 jobs that you'll be submitting, and the secret is that you must be able to talk to them with authority. And when I talk about that, most of the time building is really about problem solving. So when they talk to you and so on about the plans, they'll ask you to perhaps demonstrate the legal point of discharge. They'll ask you about the framing and how did you go and so on squaring it up, or the brickwork and so on, that they'll ask you and so on, various aspects of that. So you have got to be able to talk to it with authority, because that's what you're demonstrating the knowledge that they want to see.
Definitely. One thing I always talk, sorry, Cole, you go.
No, I was just going to say there, Nathan, in some cases, again, you may not be able to provide all the information and so on regarding the build. I mentioned about the volume builders, you won't be able to get contracts, you won't be able to get this, that and the other, but you certainly should be able to get working drawings, engineering and so on if you can, and as much information as you can to basically substantiate that you know about the job.
The history can go, when you talk about your 3 jobs, they can go back as far as 7 years. Now, this is a really strict rule. You can go back 7 years. So if the job was handed over 8 years ago, you cannot use that job. So it's really strict. It will count towards your overall history, of course. When we talk about our 3 case studies, it absolutely has to be in the last 7 years. I've often met with people that have history that's a little while ago, and they've had a break from construction, or maybe they're going for domestic, but they work full-time in commercial, and they worked in domestic 6 years ago. I really push them really hard, because I say, well, listen, in 1 year's time, all that history is going to be irrelevant, and you're going to have to start again. So be really conscious of that, because that 7 year is a really hard rule. So definitely within the last 7 years. And the other thing I talk to my clients a lot about is I talk about the job site itself. So when you've done a job, you know about the accessibility. So what was the accessibility like? What went wrong on the job? Did they pour the slab 200 mil too deep? And then what did you do to recover from that? So they want to hear what went wrong, how you dealt with, and what the outcome was. It's a great way to sell yourself, because we all know when it comes to construction, nothing always goes to plan. How many times you get plans and the architect and the engineer don't agree, or it's just not physically possible to build? They want to hear those stories. They want to hear what you ran into, how it went wrong, how you fixed it. And these stories really sell you to them. And more importantly, this is the most important part, It fills in time for the interview. It's a 1 to 3 hour experience. If you could fill that thing with a really entertaining story and tell them all about the job and talk about yourself, it means you're going to spend less time dealing into your books and your framing and all the other stuff that you're going to be more nervous about. So definitely have the story. When you pick your 3 jobs, pick the ones that sell you the most. Don't just have the cookie cutter stuff. If you're just doing cookie cutter stuff, if you can find something that's a bit different, that's great. I had a really good client that was doing, he's a good builder, good background. Some of his jobs was a little bit generic. So just to mix it up, he was going for a DBU. We put a 4th job in, and his 4th job was was Gun by a World. He renovated Gun by a World. That was a really interesting job that really showed off his skill set. It was a great talking point for the interview. It showed him that he wasn't just an average chippy, and it was a great way for him to actually start conversation and with the assessor. So if you have something unique or got a bit of a spotlight to it, or was a bit famous in some way, that's a great way to sort of sell yourself.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Nath, on that one. And the other one is that everybody should know that the actual assessors are DBUs themselves. And most of the time, they're older guys and so on that are kind of pushing my vintage, whose bodies are out of warranty and so on for working on site. And they've decided and so on to work with the VBA. And they're pretty proud of the craft and so on. They really want to make sure that you know what's really going on. And I can tell you that their BS antennas and so on are fairly finely tuned. Okay, so when you take in the work, make sure that it's yours, make sure that you really know about it. We'd say to clients that, the few days before you go into the interview, just study those plans again and just make sure you know every aspect and so on of that build. So again, you can talk to it with authority. And Nathan's quite right. If you've got something that's a bit different, even if it doesn't quite fit the 3 jobs, we'll put it in the application, or you can put it in the back of the application to be able to support what you just make it a bit more interesting.
There is a funny story about a guy that sat down for an interview, and I love this story. He borrowed a job, right? Didn't do the job, but he borrowed it from a mate, put it in the application. He sat down and did the interview with the assessor. Sat down at the interview, and the person doing the interview actually did that job. So he got caught pretty quick and consequently failed. Not one of our guys, unfortunately, but it was just one of those, really rare ones. So you really got to know your history. If it is 5 years ago, then, common sense applies that your memory is not going to be as good as if you were doing the job right now. But there's no excuse for you not studying that job. Maybe go out, drive out there, get familiar with the surroundings, but take it seriously. The failure rates are massive. We talk about failure rates being over 80% for these interviews. They're massive. We're fortunate enough to have a tested process where we have a 92% success rate, passing on the first attempt. And if you don't pass on the first attempt, you stay with us until you pass for no extra cost. So it's all about just making sure we support you through it. At the same breath, we do turn down 8 out of 10 people that contact us because they don't have the relevant history. So it's really important that a lot of times we're pushing you away. Now get this tick spot, and then come back. And when you're ready, we'll bring you on board. And once you're with us, you leave us with the license in your hand. Colin, in what capacity do you need to work in projects to demonstrate experience?
Okay, what the Act says is that you must be able to manage, supervise, and undertake the work. Okay, so the first thing is, and so don't go in there with soft hands like I've got. Okay, and so on that make sure that you look the part, look the trade. Don't go in there suited up. You go in there and so on that neat, casual, but looking like a tradie who wants to be a builder. You've got to be able to talk to all aspects of the work, and part of the reason and so on for the big failure rate and so on, if people aren't trained and so on for the reg, is they don't know what to expect. Okay, you've got to know the stuff. Nathan's going to be talking a little bit about the books and so on later on. The VBA is dragging and kicking into the 1980s at the moment. They still won't allow you to take in a smartphone or a tablet. You've got to take in and so on the Act and the regs and the 1684 and the NCC. Nobody and so on can remember all of the regs that are involved, but you've got to be able to know how to find them. So if you go in there with books that are brand new, the assessors rub their hands together and say, we've got a live one here, and they'll start asking you some obtuse questions. So you've got to know what to expect. You've got to know what to be able to talk to. Again, you may not have been involved in every aspect of that build. If you were the volume builder, you wouldn't be involved with the slab, but you've got to be able to talk to it. You may not have done any bricklaying, but you've got to be able to talk about the spaces between the weep holes. And I guess that the Cert 4 and the diploma are fantastic qualifications and so on, which we strongly advocate and so on you should get. When it comes down to the interview, we focus very specifically and so on the requirements and so on to get you through the assessment process, and furthermore, and so on to make you a better builder. The last thing you want to do is take a shortcut out there, do something that's dodgy, because even if you get your license, I can assure you it's almost a recipe for going broke.
Absolutely. You only need to look at the statistics, guys. That's the construction industry is a very tough industry. You know, we talk about once you get your license, you know, a huge amount within the next 6 years, amount of builders that go bankrupt. So it's all about making sure you're managing your cash flow, have a really secure setup business, and getting the right advisors. You know, we've got 1,800 licenses so far, and we spend a lot of our industry, a lot of our time actually working with the guys post-registration to set up their businesses and get their business. That's what the RBN, the Registered Builder Network, is all about. And it's about just make sure we can support these people through, because you're going to spend years and years getting ready to be licensed. You're going to spend $10,000 plus getting registered. But would you spend $10,000 to go bankrupt? Of course not. You might as well keep your 10 grand. So it's about not only being the right operator, but being a good operator, running a good business, getting registered, staying registered, and being successful. And I always say a registered builder isn't a successful builder, and a successful builder is not just registered. It's about the business and the structure and all the stuff that goes on behind it and the business behind it. If you're an amazing chippy, it doesn't make you a good builder. And if you're an amazing business person, it doesn't make you a good builder either. You need both sides of the coin. So it's really important. I've got another question. Can we do a bathroom renovation without any qualifications, Cole?
If it's under $10,000. Okay, you can do any building, undertake any building work in terms of structural stuff or cosmetic stuff under $10,000. The things that you're not allowed to do, and you must be licensed and you must have a contract for, is demolition. So you can't demolish anything and so on that for somebody else without a contract. But building works and so on, you can do under $10,000. In anything over $10,000, you must have a contract, which requires that you must be registered. Anything over $16,000, you must offer in the contract builder's warranty insurance. And that's the owner pays that in the contract. That's another story, but you must have insurance and so on to be registered.
Yeah. Now, we've spoken about the application. So Colin's explained the application. The next part that we wanted to talk about was the training that we provide at builder registration. So again, we start with application, then we go through the training, and then we go through the VBA process and what to expect when it comes to the interview. So to start off, we've done the application. We've spoken about the requirements, 3 jobs, 1 reference. If anyone has any questions about that, keep firing them through. The questions have been fantastic. We talk about the training now. Training is a really important component. So
Sorry, no, we should mention that the average application ends up being about 200 pages.
Yeah, so about that thick.
Okay, so it's a considerably sized document that goes in, because it's got to contain as much information about the 3 jobs. Then they have further information that they require about you personally. They ask a little bit about your financial probity. You've got to do a police check. And of course, you've got to get this letter of eligibility for the insurance. And that kind of wraps up. And you want to make sure that the application is 100% correct, because you don't want to going into the VBA sitting there and then getting sent back to you and having to wait for it again. So sorry, no, I thought it was better mentioned.
That's good. No, and with the application. And with the application, part of the builder registration sort of experience is that we actually do the majority of the application with you. We even submit it to the VBA on your behalf. So what we specifically want from our clients is to provide us with the 3 jobs, so plans and permits. We will get you to fill a 1-page summary of basically what happened. And we have 8 lovely ladies in the office that full-time job is actually put applications together. As we said, we've got over 200 submitted at the VBA right now, and that's specifically what they're doing. So they're CSOs or client service officers, and they're there. You have 1 allocated to you, and their job is to basically work with you until that application is physically lodged. And having that support is an amazing help. It just means you can focus on your study, free to focus, and really prepare for your multiple choice test and interview. So that's just part of the service. Now, moving on to training. Now, the way that our course works, okay, now I appreciate that you've done Cert 4, possibly done Cert 4, possibly done diploma. When you come to our training, it is a very different experience. Now, we're not here to do case studies and assignments and projects like you will in a traditional RTO. A good organization like Kangan has really good resources and materials for that. What we're here to do is specifically train you to pass this interview on your first attempt. Really simply, we are not here to help you to teach you how to build, because at the end of the day, you should already know that by the time you get to this stage. You should have considerable experience behind you. You would have had great mentors from your experience at Kangan. And then by the time you come to us, we are here to specifically do one thing, and that is to make sure you're ready for your interview and multiple choice test. Now, we run our course one night a week over 14 weeks. So it's one night a week, 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night, one night a week for 14 weeks. At the end of the 14 weeks, we want to submit your application to the VBA. The VBA will take 6 to 8 weeks to respond. We then want to utilize that time to then put you into an advanced group. Now, there's no extra cost for this. This is just part of the service. We put you into an advanced group, and that runs for 6 weeks. So one night a week for 6 weeks. And that is where it really steps up. There's a much higher tempo. So you're going to get really drilled as if you're in an interview. They will do a lot of situation-based things where they might even put the spotlight on you for 10 minutes and hit you with repetitive questions in an interview-like environment. So again, 14 weeks doing the foundation training, submit your app to the VBA, then you'll be coming to our advanced class. And in advanced, it's a much more high tempo. And everyone in that room that you sit together are all going to be registered in the next 2 to 10 weeks. So it's a really exciting group. We run several of those on Zoom and in Nunawading. So we've got lots of options for that, but that's once your application is submitted to the VBA. Colin, did you want to add anything about the course, mate?
Just that we're really focused, as Nate said, and so on getting guys through. As Nate said beforehand, and so on, that if you don't happen to get through, and we've all had bad days, and we have people that freeze and just kind of blank out, and if that happens and so on, that you come back to us and there's no further charge, we'll retrain, focus on those areas and so on that you need to. So it's absolutely in our interest and so on, and our objective to get you through the first time. And I must say, and so on, that we're very good at telling you what you need to know, not necessarily what you want to hear. Okay, so if through the training process we feel and so on that you need a little more effort in some of the areas, and we all have areas that Nathan said that we're good at and other areas we need to focus on, we will tell you and so on that we think we need to focus on that. We'll provide you with extra training resources or materials to be able to bring you up to speed. We've got the ability and so on to even be able to provide you with a Zoom class that we've recorded if you weren't able and so on to make it or what have you. So, well, our whole focus is to get you through. We're not a sausage machine. Everybody and so on has got a different case, but we really want and so on to make sure that you get through on your first go. And if you didn't get through on the first go, we back you up so that you know what to expect and you get through on the second go.
Fantastic. Now, a really important part of the training experience is that you're going to be basically bringing a whole lot of books with you. Now, one of the most popular books, the ones that you guys know really well, is the NCC. So this is the Volume 2 Red NCC. The new one is coming out later this year, but this is the one they're currently testing on. As you can see with the tabs attached, this is the builder registration tabbing system. Now you can see how absolutely incredible that system is. Now it's all color coded. So if you've got a question and you've got a question on fire safety, you've got a 3.7, which is your nice little blue tab there. You open it up and it's all color coded for the sections that you need to answer the questions. We have the same system with the timber framing manual. That's a really good system. You can see the amount of data that's in there. Another really popular one is the Guide to Standards and Tolerances. Now, I'm going to move my camera back a little bit just to show you this. It's not supposed to be too intimidating, but I'm going to show you all the books that are involved. There are actually 20 books, and a lot of people get really surprised with that, with all the different regs and Australian standards. Overall, there are actually 20 books. So I'm just going to show that quickly. So you can see the amount of books that are actually required. And what we do is we actually tab up all the books to take you through. And it's actually 20 books that are required. So what happens is that we actually set you up with a little suitcase. You have a suitcase at training. You're bringing these to every single week, and you're working through all the different Australian standards. It's incredibly important that you have your books really well tabbed up, because when you're in the heat of the interview and you're nervous and you're asked a question about footings or stumps or stud lamination, it's really important that you're able to identify the tab really early, answer the question quickly. We had a class, an NCC class running about 3 months ago, and it's when we had made these tabs. And what we'd found is that half the group had the books all tabbed up in the system, and the other half was using their own system or not tabbed. Now, this group had been training together for 6 weeks, so they're at the exact same level. We found in that class, they went through 25 NCC questions. They stopped it after 10 minutes. And what happened was that everyone that had the tabs all done had finished, and the clients that didn't have the tabs up and they were looking at it manually had only got up to question 8. So 8 out of 25. So the client with the tabs actually got through 25 questions in the same time that the students got through with the 8. So tabbing and highlighting your books is really, really important. Now, this is our system. This is the way that we find works. However system you use, we just recommend that you just take it very seriously. And in the class that we run, at the end of each class, we also have tabbing guides. We also, if you ever do purchase of tabs from us, we have free YouTube videos. So the YouTube videos, because there's always pressure in front of people and in classes, you can actually watch our YouTube videos on our YouTube channel. So Builder Registration YouTube channel. And there are already preloaded videos of every single one of these 20 books, and one of our DBU trainers actually walking through the book, tabbing it up one at a time. So if you purchase the tabs, you can actually go through, and even just the NCC tabs, really cheap products, only $80 to buy the tabs for the NCC. And it's something that you can actually walk through, and then when you sit down for your interview and the VBA assessor sees your interview and sees your book looking like this, that's going to go a long way to making sure not only you have a quick interview, a pleasurable interview, but you're actually passing on the first attempt. And at the end of the day, that's what you're here to do. So that's all the books. I want to talk through costings and everything at the end of this too. So we explain all the pricing involved and also the timelines, but we're just focusing on the training at the moment. The other thing that's really important to note is with Builder Registration is that all of our clients all of our trainers are registered DBUs. So they're all practicing DBUs. They all come from our system. We're very biased. We only use homegrown trainers, and they're guys that have come through running really successful businesses, have been sort of star pupil in their class, and now they're training people to get registered. And I know that they get a lot of fulfillment and is giving back to the industry, and they just get a lot of fulfillment doing the role. So Colin, did you have anything else to add for training?
Look, I was just going to add that again, Nathan, so on that the trainers are practicing. They're out there in the real world. They don't talk to our clients and so on. They actually talk with them. They can share real world issues and situations. And it's interesting, we've always got DBUs around the office, and after people get registered, if they've got a problem on site, we actually invite them and so on to call through to the office or FaceTime, and they can talk directly with one of our DBUs and even help them through a situation. It particularly happens the VBA is becoming far more active now on doing surprise inspections, and they're like financial auditors. Unless they find something wrong, they're not doing their job, and it can put the wind up any kind of builder to have the VB job on the site. So to have one of our experienced DBUs and so on just on standby to give them a bit of assurance, that's just another way we like to back people up a little bit.
Did you want to talk about the insurance requirements?
Yeah, certainly. The any job over $16,000, you must offer builder's warranty insurance. Now, the warranty insurance is in case the builder goes broke, the builder absconds, or the builder dies. That's the only reason that gets paid out. It's not paid out on damages or what have you, that if the builder's still operating. It's in the case, which unfortunately is all too common these days, and so on, a builder's going broke. And it's insurance that's included in the contract for the value of the build. So if you're doing a first home owner, smaller home for say 300,000, the value of the contract is the value of the policy which is taken out. Now you can't get registered unless the builder's got this insurance, and you can't get the insurance unless you're registered, which is a bit of a catch-22. So what the company behind the insurance is the VMIA, Victorian Managed Insurance Agency, and what they require and so on for people prior to getting their license is to complete an application to then, which goes through a lot of the financial stuff which we don't need to know, but it ends up producing and so on a letter of eligibility which you give to the VBIA, and it's basically the insurance company saying, well, if you want to give this guy his license, we're prepared to give him this amount of insurance. Now the insurance works differently to your car, house or boat insurance, in that the VBA will assess you, and normally as a new builder, they'll hit you with a fairly modest insurance value, and it might be, say, $1 million. Now, if we talk about those $300,000 bills, you might get 3 contracts of each of $300,000, which takes you up to $900,000. And the way that it varies is that you only use the insurance for the builds that you're doing. So if you get another build, you're sitting on 900,000, you've got $1 million worth of cover. If you get another build for another 300,000, you've got two options. Either you apply to the insurance company to an increase in the insurance, which they might be a bit reluctant in your first couple of years, but certainly as you get experience, they're more and more agreeable to be able to do that. Or if you can't get the insurance and so on, you finish one job to clear some of the headroom. Okay, because again, it's not a policy that you pay for a set amount every year. You only pay for it when you use it. Most guys, when they get their license, don't hang out their shingle as being a builder straight away or have their first job. They normally wait for a little while. And so you only utilise that insurance and so on as and when your contracts come up.
Fantastic. So just to highlight what Colin said there, a common misconception is that limit isn't the limit that you can do per year. That limit is how much work you can have on at any given time. So it's a really important one that often is misconceived. So I've got a quick question. How to get a license for bathroom renovation and what's the requirements?
Okay. Again, the requirements are very similar for every category of license, whether it be limited or unlimited. And that is you must have at least 3 years experience and so on in the industry, preferably doing that work. But if you've done other carpentry work, what have you, we include that as well. You must have 3 jobs involving kitchens, bathrooms and laundries that you can submit in the portfolio with as much detail as possible. Now, in a lot of cases, you won't have building permits and so on for a bathroom kitchen renovation because it is a remodelling. But we do have to put in every other piece of work we can, particularly on the likes of waterproofing. And again, you must be able to talk to it. You must have done one of those jobs with a registered builder who can give you the reference. So it's the same criteria. It's just applies and restricted and so on to kitchens, bathrooms and laundries. There's one, if you're doing decks and pergolas, there's one for non-habitable buildings, which is specifically for that. If you're doing gates and fences, there's another. There's 29 categories.
And then that goes back to what we were talking about before about bringing 3 jobs to the table and what those 3 jobs are, that's what you're going to get a license in. So if it's 3 gates and fences, that's your license. If it's bathroom renovation, you have to show the VBA that you've worked with registered builders doing that specific work. Another question, Colin, is it straight, that's a good one, is it straight after final payment it classes as finished to the insurance company, back to home warranty?
The home warranty, we strongly urge you and so on to get the letter of eligibility whilst you're putting your application together. It can be included in the application. Then when you go to the interview and you get told that you're being recommended, the VBA already has your letter of eligibility there. It's really frustrating if you get told that you're going to be recommended and then you have to go and put your application in because the VMIA is taking between 8 and 12 weeks. So you don't want to be told and so you've got your license, then have to wait another 3 to 4 months to get your letter of eligibility to satisfy them to be able to get your number.
Yeah, and I think the question, Cole, it's about the, they're talking about the limit of home warranty. So is it straight after final payment, it classes finished to the insurance company so they can create more?
Sorry, once you finished your contract, that policy is freed up for your extra amount.
Is that like a certificate of occupancy?
Yes. So once you have that as considered and so on, the bill is considered as being complete. The policy lasts for the owner for, let's say, 6.5 years, but effectively the statute of limitation is 10 years, okay? And depending on the nature of the structural problem, over the years, the value kind of diminishes, okay? But you've taken out a policy, it covers the owner in case the builder goes broke, dies or absconds for a period after 10 years.
Okay, so we've gone through the training. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about the interview, and then finally what we'll do is wrap up everything. And again, we'll keep answering any questions, keep firing away. So we're going to talk next about the interview process, what to expect, a little bit of things that happen in the interview and what to expect. Then we're going to talk about pricing and what's involved, and then finally we'll wrap up with some questions, and that will sort of clear us up for the night. We're already at 6:43, so we're sort of flying through this, and we don't want to take up too much of your time too. So I know you guys want to know sort of how this finishes with the pricing and everything, so we want to get to that. So with the VBA interview, Colin, tell us about the VBA interview and what the client should expect when they walk through the doors at the VBA.
Okay, at the moment there's still a mix so on that if you do not have your diploma and you go through and you do the multiple choice and the plan reading, that is done through a program called ProCol-U, which is based out of the States. It's being used by universities, and you can do that home-based or office-based. The program allows a person in the background, the protocol advisor, to be able to see you and also see what's on the screen. And the first thing that they'll do is a security run and so on. You get asked to hold your tablet up and so on, your computer up, show it around the room, show that you haven't got anybody standing behind you who's a DBU, see that you have got, they cheat notes or that type of thing. Then they activate the test, and you've got an hour to do the multiple choice, which is quite simple. Multiple choice on the computer is quite easy. Then you must do a plan reading, and it can either be bracing or it could be roof lines or something, identify that, and you do have to use the mouse. Now, we'll give you quite specific training in that because it's a lousy thing to be able to do. We've had quite a lot of discussion with the VBA. I meet with them regularly, and at the moment and so on, they're wedded to this program, but we have to get through. You have to get 70% on the multiple choice, 70% on the plan reading, which if you know your stuff and so on is not difficult to achieve. Once you get 70%, you then get invited to an interview, which is a one-on-one interview, which, as I say, is with one of the VBA assessors, who's normally he's a DBU builder, and it's his job and so on to ask you questions and so on, mainly based on your work history that you've provided, those 3 jobs, to draw out from you and so on a thorough understanding and so on of the way building goes from A to Z. And so they'll be asking you about how did you get your plans? What are the form numbers that you used and so on? What have you done in terms of the permit? What's the role of the building surveyor? They'll then ask you other questions and so on as well to test your overall knowledge. And it might be the contract that you use. What's the cooling off period for the contract? What's the difference between provisional sums and prime cost? So they'll be testing you right the way through. And then at the end, and again, depending on how you've handled yourself at the interview, it could be as quick as an hour. It could be as long as two hours. Face-to-face tends to be a bit longer, and they're still mixing it up as to whether it's face-to-face or Zoom. But the key thing is that what you want is the end of that interview to have impressed the assessor with your scope of knowledge and so on, and your understanding, again, conversationally and so on, that you're going to be a good builder and you've done all these things, and you want him to recommend you. Sometimes they don't give you an answer. They're not forced to. Generally speaking, they record, or they will record and so on the interview for audit purposes. They'll turn the cameras off, turn the interview off, and say, look, Nathan, I'm really pleased to say that I'll be recommending you. Okay? Then you can walk out and so on, that sigh of relief and have a huge drink, because you would have deserved it from them.
Fantastic.
If you don't get through, there is an appeal process. And what we do with any of the clients that don't get through on the first go here, I ask to see the letter from the VBA. Some guys feel that they've been really aggrieved, but we'll sit down and we'll talk it through. The letter from the VBA does tell you the areas and so on they missed out on. We have gone through the appeal process in some ways. We tend to short circuit that a little bit. The best thing that you will get through an appeal is to get another interview, which can take quite some time. So generally speaking, we recommend that people suck it up. The fact that they perhaps didn't perform, they answer the questions the right way, that's blanked out or what have you, and let's get straight back into it and submit the application again, which we will do, come back and do the training and so on with us, no further charge, but just make sure we focus on the things that are highlighted as being needing work.
Cool. 2 things I wanted to highlight. Number one was interviews really vary from person to person. When you talk to other people, especially someone that got registered a few years ago, good to listen to, it's great information, but we've had people that have had 3 interviews with the same assessor on the same day and have a completely different flow. A really simple example is how much time do they spend on your application and your history, and how much time do they spend in the books? We will have some clients where they don't touch the books at all, the application at all, and then we'll have other clients where they're really delving into it, really talking about the jobs. We try to keep them on the jobs as much as you can because that fills in a lot of time. But really, you've got to, an expression I use a lot is we got to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And if you're preparing for that face-to-face 3-hour interview, it's a growl. They're going to be hitting the books really hard, and it can only really go up from there. So your experience is going to vary. If we've got 4 people here that are going to be doing interviews in the next couple of years, you're all going to have different experiences. So that's why in our training, we really have to take an overall look at it, because everyone is going to have a different experience. So we have to basically hope for the best, but prepare you for the absolute worst. And some of these interviews can be a little bit intense. One thing I say, there's 3 reasons why people fail. Okay, that's what I've always said. Number 1 is you've just panicked in the interview and the interview's got the better of you. And if that's the case, that's okay. We will reload you, get you back as quickly as we can. And at the end of the day, some people just need to go through a second time, and that's okay. The second reason why we sometimes get a failure, because 92% means that 8% fail. So why are they failing? Number 1 is panic. Number 2 is I had a really good builder in Geelong, really, really good builder. He was a DBM upgrading to a DBU. Couldn't believe he failed his interview. I couldn't believe it. Just before I gave him a call, I checked our records and he had done 4 out of the 14 sessions. Unfortunately, he went through the first 4. He felt like he knew it all. He wasn't really learning and he didn't respect the training. It's really important that you do that. The third reason why we sometimes get a failure, and this happens occasionally, is sometimes we call them pigeon chests. When you walk in and we have some people walk in, normally blokes, and they walk in and they have a really bad attitude and their chest is out and they're basically going, well, I'm going to teach them more about construction than they're going to teach me. That is not the attitude to have. We basically want you to be, we don't want you to be a doormat. We want you to be respectful, but you've got to be firm on yourself. So for example, if they ask you a question like, what is the minimum window area per square meterage of a room, which is 10%, ventilation is 5%, and you say 10%, 5%, and they say, no, you're wrong. You say, well, no, I'm actually right. And it goes, okay, well, show me the answer. And then you show them the answer. So we want you to be proud and confident, but at the same way as respectful. Very much like Colin and I are speaking today. We talk about the way you dress, the way you present yourself, the way you communicate. It's really important. So those 3 things, they're the things that we want to address and make sure that we are passing on the first attempt and that we get you through as quickly as we can. So that's a lot about the interview. I wanted to talk through about the pricing. We've got another question that's come up. We'll get that at the end. So it's almost 10 to 7 now. We sort of said we'd be done by 7. So and we're happy to hang around to answer as many questions as you like.
Please, any questions that people have afterwards and so on, that email or contact us directly. The big thing is that we're very proud of being able to show people the pathway to be able to do it. And as to whether you're ready or not, there's no interest. We just want to make sure that you're on the right track.
Okay, and when it comes to pricing and this structure, what I tell everyone is when you start this journey and you've got the background, you sign up with us, we've checked to make sure we are going to get it, you've got the history, you're ticking the boxes, this is going to be basically a $10,000 experience. We charge $7,000 for what we do. You pay $3,500 at the start, the rest is over the journey. You've got to budget about $2,000 for books. Now, we're not here to make any profit off books or anything like that. We basically have them here. I tell everyone to beg, borrow, steal. If you can borrow them, get them, download for it, just get them however you need to get them. If you can't get them, we'll give you a book list. Let us know the ones you can't get. And when you turn up to training, we'll have them sitting there for you. We highly recommend our tabbing system. Of course, that's our system that we're very proud of. And we do have people that can tab up your books for you, but we prefer if you tabbed it yourself because it's a better learning experience. You'll get your mind around those books. Occasionally we have a guy that calls up, goes, oh, my interview's in 3 weeks. I need it now. And we can tab it for them, but it's better if you tab it yourself. The other expense you have to allow for is the VBA right at the end are going to charge you roughly $1,000 to apply for the license. That is their standard fee. So if you budget that, $10,000 for the experience over a 4 to 6 month journey, that will basically cover every single expense that you run into. There shouldn't be anything other than that. The only other thing we ever run into is sometimes our clients, just because they're that super nervous before the interview, they might want to do a one-on-one with one of our trainers. And sometimes they might do that a week before the interview, just to bulletproof themselves for the interview, just to give them the absolute reassurance that they are going to pass. And that can be a great investment. So that's another thing that can come up. But basically $10,000 over a 4 to 6 month journey. And we know that it does sound, it's not a cup of coffee, it is expensive, but I'm very, very sure if you got your license today, you'll be able to make that back on your first job. So it's definitely a worthwhile investment. And again, we'll keep going through any questions, but Cole, did you want to add anything to that?
No, it's as you say, Nathan, so the books and so on, that if you can beg, borrow or steal or get them and so on is one thing. It's interesting that most of our clients will keep the NCCs tabbed up in the 1684. And they'll throw them in the back and so on of their trucks, because they can actually reference any of the material they can faster using the tab system, what they can doing a lookup on a computer. Unfortunately, a lot of the other books and so on, such as the Act and what have you, will be like your school books. They'll sit up on the shelves and they'll gather dust, but they look impressive.
Yeah.
They would have helped you and so on get registered, okay?
So that's a lot of what we have to explain today. What we're going to do is we're going to answer a couple more questions, but and please keep firing the questions through, please. At the end of this, I'm going to ask for Matt. We're going to send Matt an email, basically some information about us, an introduction to us, a link to our website, a copy of our book list, show you some of the tabs, some of our videos. So we'll get that email to Matt at Kangan in the next 48 hours. He will then distribute to anyone that's registered for this webinar, and that we can keep you in contact with us if you'd like. If you think you're closer to registration, give us a call and just let us know. We'll talk you through, we'll walk you through the experience, talk about a tailored solution for you, what we can do for you to get you registered. If you're not ready for registration, we'll let you know, and that's fine, but we'll also give you a pathway of how far away you are, what boxes we need to tick, and before we can take you on as a client, because I'm sure you appreciate, you don't want to, the worst thing we can do is have you pay for the course and we can't assist and get the end result, because at the end of the day, you're paying for a service to get an end result, and that's what we want to be held accountable to. So we want to make sure we're getting it. Now, one more question over here, Cole, is, do you need to own a house or assets to qualify for insurance?
Yeah, good question. And so normally to get something like $1 million worth of insurance, you have to show equity and so on, or cash equivalent of about $50,000. Okay, it's unusual for the VBA to give multiple $1 million in insurance because they want to see your track record and so on grow as a builder before they increase it. But they're more than welcome, as you grow your business, they're more than accommodating and so on to increase that insurance. But yes, and if you've got less than that, you might have $10,000 and so on. Get it from parents, get it from whoever and so on, that and demonstrate that and get, for $500,000, which is probably enough to do a really good little kitchen bathroom reno or get you started.
A little trick we mentioned to the guys is that if the finance isn't tight or you think you're a bit weak in that area, don't worry about getting $500,000 or $1 million straight away. Just get your eligibility for $1. We used to say, what's it now? It's 16,000 they do.
16,000.
We used to call it the $1 insurance policy. So basically, when you get issued with your license, so congratulations, you've got 14 days or a month to get this letter of eligibility. Just get it for the $1. If you get it for $1, that means you have your license, you've got it in, and once you've got your license, you can then apply to improve your finances, or as you said, get some money into your accounts from somewhere, and then you can apply for an increase. But you just need insurance. So if you have it for $1 or 16,000, that's the new $1 amount. Just get it in. It doesn't matter. So don't get caught up, or don't not go for your registration if your finances aren't strong at the moment. Get the license in your hand, and then worry about improving your insurance, because that's something that can easily be done.
Yeah, we should say, Nathan, we've got a close association with Insurance House, which is one of the 6 distributors. There's only 6 distributors of the insurance. There are a lot of other brokers, but these are the key guys. They work with us closely and so on. They take the information, so we don't need to know your financials, but they will help you attain your letter of eligibility, and there's no further charge for that. Okay? Everything else that we're providing and so on is...
When I talk to people in the industry, if you talk to people they're talking about 10 years ago or even 8 years ago, it was really, really tough to get this home warranty. There's a lot of fear about it in the industry, and it's like, how hard is it? You need this, you need cash, you need good. It's not as hard as it used to be. So I really want to get rid of that fear. It's a bit like the fear of the multiple choice test. You sort of just want to disregard it, get rid of that, just tick the box, get it done. And even if you only get 16,000, we know that we can increase that further along the journey. So yeah, we hope that makes all sense. We've sort of answered all the questions. So I just give it another 30 seconds for any other questions to come through. But we've had a really good attendance today. We're really impressed with the amount of people that have come through. We've sort of thrown this together late, we've sort of stuffed up the link and had Nathan Hawkins everywhere. So I just wanted to sort of wrap up by saying thank you so much to Matt at Kangan. For their a quality organization. We know that the people and the effect that they have in the industry and the people they send out in the industry are of the highest standard. We're really privileged to work with them. Again, my name's Nathan Hawkins. That's Colin Brewer. We're business partners, owners of Builder Registration. We're really proud of the job that we do in the industry and what effect we have on the industry. We're both incredibly passionate about it, and we look forward to speaking to more Kangan students in the future. And again, we'll be hosting more of these webinars. So please, if you have any questions at all, you want to come to future ones, got mates or got other people that you work with that have information. We know that out on the construction site, there's a lot of bad stories that go around about registration, and one person says this, another person says, and it's, if you come to us, you know you're hearing it from straight from the horse's mouth. We're doing it every day. We get licenses every week, and we just love what we do. Cole?
Yeah, look, absolutely. And so on that, we're here and so on to help support the industry. Yeah, it's a good business, but it's based on giving people factual information. And I say, if you're not ready and so on, we'll give you the pathway to be able to show you and so on what's needed and so on for you to get registered. But a lot of the time, and so it might be the work history, it might be other elements, it might be the reference and so on, and it gives you something to work towards to attaining your goal.
Fantastic. One thing I always say, finish with, is that when you pay this $10,000 over the journey, $7,000 to us and the rest spread out, it's either going to be the best investment that you made or the worst investment. And if it is going to be the best investment, it's the guys that get registered. So many times we get guys coming on board and 2 out of 10 pay the money and then don't take it seriously. And it's terrible, because it's not a cup of coffee, you know, it's not like throwing a cup of coffee away. It's a significant investment. We want you to take it seriously. We want this to be life-changing for you. We want this to be the best investment you've made. This will be the investment that actually changes your life and opens up your whole career for possibilities. We love the construction industry. It's pretty tough at the moment, but it will bounce back, and it is starting to recover now. And it really is, you know, we're really privileged to be able to talk to you guys today. So thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate it. Please follow our YouTube channel, follow us on social medias, all that sort of stuff. We do lots of regular posts, lots of regular updates. There are literally changes that happen to registration every couple of months, and we make sure we stay on top of it. And, you know, sometimes it'll go in your favor or out. So it's good to know where the VBA is headed, with everything from DBUs to DBMs to trade licensing to everything that we've got coming up over the next couple of years. So thank you again. We really appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time through Kangan.